Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we are unpacking the esoteric cosmology of Rudolf Steiner, specifically looking at the fascinating step-by-step construction of the human being. Honestly, if you've ever wondered how the various layers of our existence, our physical form, our personal desires, and our spiritual essence, were forged in the fires of cosmic history, you are absolutely in the right place. We're taking a structured journey through the source material today to see exactly how these wildly distinct parts came together to form the whole. Okay, so let's just dive right in and ask ourselves a pretty massive question. What fundamental cosmic components actually had to combine to make us self-conscious human beings? Because according to the text we're analyzing, we didn't just pop into existence all at once. No way. We are the result of an incredibly complex, layered process. We are a composite. So what were the distinct forces that painstakingly built our capacity to think, to feel, and to actually say, I? Well, to really grasp our origins, we've got to look at something the sources called the three breaths of the divine primal spirit. And it's a gorgeous concept, honestly. The text described this as the rhythmic life of the world spirit, which is often beautifully compared to the inhaling and exhaling of Brahma. Each of these three breaths corresponds to a specific logos, or divine word, and represents a completely distinct evolutionary stream. And the wild part? Every single one of these streams had to be entirely finished before we could reach our current stage of human development. Think of this whole process like a massive cosmic assembly line, building from the ground up. It starts with a generic physical form, layers on the soul's desires and personality, and finally crowns the entire structure with divine spirit. It's exactly like an architectural build. First you lay the foundation, then you plan the interior layout, and finally you hook up the electricity that lights the whole thing up. Let's break down each of these three breaths. Section 1. The third breath, the blueprint of physical form. So this initial stream of development, the third logos, is basically the absolute baseline for our existence. Operating strictly from the outside, it set up the laws of nature. It guided the sequence of the first three elemental kingdoms, literally condensing primal spirit into a cosmic mineral kingdom. That provided the exact forces and substances that still work lawfully within our physical bodies today. But here is the most important takeaway from this breath. It produced what the sources call the generic human being. It built the physical mineral vessel containing the species-level characteristics that we all share equally. If we only had this third breath, we would all be entirely identical in form and function. Section 2. The second breath, the spark of desire. Now, let's see how this builds with the second's logos. This is a secondary, entirely different stream of evolution that brought the chaotic, animating force of the soul to our generic physical forms. The astral world, which is essentially a nature of cosmic desire and passion, actually sank down into the human seed as a gift for our evolution. This astral body, derived from the second breath, is the bearer of our instincts, our drives, our passions, and our ever-changing inner sensations. It's what breathes the life and movement into that static physical form we just talked about. And here's where it gets really interesting. The crucial point is the stark contrast between our shared physical vessel and our unique individual personalities. Unlike our generic physical nature, the forces of our personality followed a completely different path through the universe. They experienced a whole series of incarnations and lessons in earlier evolutionary stages. So, it is strictly through the second breath that we possess our own personal interests, sympathies, and antipathies. This breath is literally what distinguishes you from the person sitting next to you. Section 3. The first breath, the sacrifice of light. Okay, we've finally reached the highest element in this framework, the first breath. This is the divine wisdom that eventually entered humanity directly. Now, the sources explain that initially, the first logos acted as a central light, illuminating humans entirely from the outside. We were basically just reflecting spheres, bouncing back divine light that didn't truly belong to us. We cast the light back, sure, but we certainly didn't generate it ourselves. But then came a really decisive turning point. The first logos made this profound sacrifice of its own radiant light. It allowed this light to flow out and actually penetrate the human being, awakening our individual spheres so that we could finally shine with our own enlivened light. This massive sacrifice is exactly what allowed the spirit to take true possession of the human vessel. Because of this first breath, we gained our individuality. In these texts, that's called our immortal causal body. This right here is the eternal core of the human being.
It's the spiritual essence that progresses from earth life to earth life, carrying all the lessons of our experiences, and which will eventually return to the spiritual spheres after its earthly schooling is completely finished. It is the true I within us.
Section 4. The Lemurian Confluence, the Grand Synthesis.
So you might be wondering, when did all three of these distinct streams, the generic physical, the personal soul, and the spiritual individual, actually converge? Well, according to the sources, this grand synthesis happened during the Lemurian epoch. This is the era of the third root race of humanity, coming right before the Atlantean and our current post-Atlantean epochs. And it was an absolutely pivotal moment in Earth's cosmic history.
It all happened right here, on the fiery, cloud-like continent of ancient Lemuria, a landmass described as existing south of present-day India and Southeast Asia. It was in this exact setting that the spiritual first logos finally took possession of our combined physical and soul structures. The text described Lemuria as a place of crazy, intense volcanic activity and high temperatures, where the very atmosphere was interlaced with vapor and fire. Imagine that.
This monumental confluence was a total game changer. It transformed us completely. The three breaths united into the threefold human being we recognize today: body, soul, and spirit. The generic physical body and that unwieldy astral soul finally adapted to one another just enough to become the bearer of the divine spirit. And this officially marked the beginning of humanity's independent earthly journey. We stopped being mere reflections and finally emerged as self-conscious entities, fully capable of rudimentary thinking and independent development.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to just sit with that for a second. Consider the profound forces that the source material says built you. You are not just some simple accident of biology. You are a grand synthesis of physical laws, astral passions, and sacrificed divine light. Knowing that you are this cosmic composite, a literal vessel of the three breaths, ask yourself, how are you going to carry that eternal enlivened spark forward? How will you let your internal light shine on your own earthly journey? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this truly fascinating cosmology. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.